Pei Amud Aleph, one line down, like the second line on the page, the last word, B'yom tiv hu da'asir. So we're discussing till now why on Yom Tiv you cannot burn, you cannot use for your lamp, for your candle, Tamei Truma oil, because it's a gzeira. Since you're not allowed to burn kachim on Yom Tiv, so Chamar Geiza, you shouldn't burn Truma on Yom Tiv, even if you're going to benefit from it. That's basically it. And we had different makoros, so why you cannot burn kachim on Yom Tiv. So now the Gemara accepted that, but now we're trying to figure out another thing. Lepal is telling you that you could light a lamp with Tomei Truma oil. Now by kachim, we know that when you're burning Tomei kachim or noise or anything else, you cannot have any benefit from it. So how come and who says that when Truma is Tomei and you're burning it, which you have to burn it as we'll see, who says you could use it as a lamp? Who says you could benefit from it? So that's what we're holding here. It's the second line from the top on Chafei Amud Aleph. B'yom tiv hu da'asir. On Yom Tiv, you cannot light your lamp, your candle, with Tomei Truma oil. Ha b'choil, if it would be in the weekday, Shapir Dami, it would be okay. You'd be able to light your lamp with Tomei Truma oil. My time, why? Omar Rav, or Rava, says Rav, like this. First, let me tell you, Kishem shem mitzvah lisrif hakadoshim shenitmu, kach mitzvah lisrif es hatruma shenitmus. It's interesting, it's not answering our question at all. It could be we're just quoting a statement that he said in general. First of all, you should know that just like you have to burn kachim, you have to burn truma. It doesn't say any source for that either. So from Rashi, it sounds like it's either a gzeira, as we said before, just like we said that on Yom Tov you cannot burn truma, gzeira because of kachim. So the same thing in the weekdays you have to burn truma, because if not, then you might not burn kachim, because they're similar, they're both holy. Or let's say there's no mitzvah, but if you leave it around, you might come to use it. So you should burn it. In order that you shouldn't come to use it, you shouldn't come to use Tomei Truma. That's one of the things which, one of the typical things we have today in freezer age with our frashas challah, that we take away the challah and we put it in our freezer, and then at Pesach we burn it. Some people question that because one of the points of burning the challah is that you shouldn't come to use it. But if you're storing it in your freezer all year, then the question is, you might come, practically, we're not going to come to use it because if it's wrapped up in that silver foil, whatever it is in the freezer, no one's going to come to take that piece of dough and bake it. But if the reason you're burning it is to avoid using it, so some people question that. Some people question whether, based on this reasoning of Rashi, that it's only here to save us from using it by accident, then what's the point of saving it to burn? Okay, let's leave that aside. The same applies when people cut their nails and they don't want to make a fire every time and they save it. And then they put it all together and make one big fire. So again, the whole reason why you're burning it is that it shouldn't fall and someone shouldn't step on it. But if you're saving it, it might defeat the purpose. Okay, I'm just mentioning that on the side. But basically, he's just saying the statement: you have to burn truma if it's tummy. Tosfos says that it's deiraisa. Since it's called kodesh, so it's like just a conclusion, a logical conclusion. The Torah calls it kodesh, and the Torah says that tummy kodesh you have to burn, so truma you also have to burn. Okay, so now we machlokes Rashi and Tosfos if it's deiraisa or drabban. Okay, but the Amra Torah, the Torah said, "B'sh'as biura tihana mimeno." While you're burning it, you could benefit from it. Where? Heichan Amra Torah. He didn't answer my question. Rav said, you have to burn truma, and the Torah says somewhere that you could use it. Where? Where is that place that the Torah said? So there's two explanations. One explanation is Mid Rav Nachman. The Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabbi Baravua, Rav Nachman said in the name of Rabbi Baravua, there's a pasuk. Amar Kra, the pasuk says that Hashem told Aaron, V'ani hine nasati lecha es mishmeres trumoisoi. I gave you the job to guard my trumos. And it's plural. What are these two trumos? Mishtei Trumas HaKosav Medaber. The pasuk is talking about two types of trumas. Achas truma toir, and one of them is toir. Va'achas truma tmeya. V'amar Rachmana l'cha tehei. The Torah says, I gave you two trumas. So you could say, I gave you the job to guard the two trumas, which means this you have to eat and this you have to burn. But the Torah says, I gave it to you. To you means you could use it. It belongs to you. You could use tummy truma. Now, how could you use tummy truma? You can't eat it. You could use it as firewood, as fuel under your pot. So basically, Torah said that you could use it. The kohen could use it. It belongs to the kohen, but he could use it to light his candles, to light a fire, to cook something on it. He's allowed to do. Right? Yeah. That's why we're careful since we're not kohanim, when we burn the challah, so we don't bake something while it's burning. Today you might not be so careful about it because we have enough fire, we have enough fuel, we have enough gas, or whatever it is to burn, to cook your food without the challah. But in the Shulchan Aruch, Rabbi says that you put it before you bake the bread, you let it burn properly before you bake anything, in order that you shouldn't use this as extra fuel for your bread. Because we're not kohen, we cannot use it. We have no right to use it for ourselves. Fine. So that's one explanation, that the Torah said, L'cha trumoisoi, both trumas belong to the kohen. Vivoi same, if you want, I can tell you a different source. Mid Rabbi Yabo from Rabbi Yabo. Dam Rabbi Yabo, Rabbi Yochanan. V'loi bi'arti mimenu b'tommi. When a person says vidui meiser, when he finished up giving away all his meisers, including meiser sheni, so he comes to the Beis Hamikdash and he says, I did everything right. What did I do right? Meiser sheni, I did not consume it while it was tummy, or while I was tummy. Mainly while it was tummy. I did not consume it when it was tummy. Which basically means, the reason why the Torah didn't say v'lo yochalti, it says v'lo bi'arti, it's coming to say that you cannot use it or consume it in any way when it's tummy. Which means you cannot use it as fuel. You cannot use it as burning wood. You have to destroy it. That's it. You can't use it. But the Torah says mimenu, from it, which means exclusively Meiser Sheni. Only Meiser Sheni has the strict rule that you cannot use it whatsoever if it's Tamei. Mimenu ha'iyat Meiser Sheni you cannot use in any form if it's Tamei. Aval tamavir, but you could consume shemen shel truma shenitmis. Tamei truma you could use as lamp oil. So that's another source, the fact that Meiser Sheni is coming to exclude something. Only he has this rule that you cannot use it when it's tummy. That means that truma you could use when it's tummy. Truma is similar to Meiser. They're both holy, they're both kodesh. This kodesh you cannot, and this kodesh you could. Those are the two sources. Says the Gemara, Lav kal v'choymeru. How could you, b'chalal, take this pasuk and learn out from it and say that Meiser has a stringency over truma? Meiser is much more lenient than Truma. Meiser Sheni, everyone could eat. Truma only a kohen could eat. So how could you come and tell me, Meiser Sheni, you cannot burn, you cannot use it under as burning wood or as lamp oil when it's tummy. But Truma you could. It doesn't make sense. V'lav kal v'choymeru. Isn't it a kal v'choymer? Ma Meiser akal. If Meiser, which is more less severe, more lenient. They cannot use it whatsoever when it's tamei. Kodesh chamor likol shekein truma, which is holy and is much more chamor. Isn't that obvious? I'm sorry. One second. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Let's go back. The Ema. I'm sorry, I read something wrong. The Ema, says the Gemara, 1 second. The pasuk is saying only Meiser Sheni, nothing else. I'm going back to the line that starts with Ema. Maybe may I say, Mimenu yatamaver, you cannot use Meiser Sheni, aval atamaver, shemer shel kodesh and nitma. You're telling me it's only Meiser Sheni, and therefore it's excluding everything else. Truma is not the only option. Kachim is another option. Will you want to tell me that kachim, while you're burning it, you could use it? We know the halacha is not like that. And if the fact that the halacha is not like that, maybe it tells me that the word mimenu cannot teach me that only meiser and nothing else. Says the Gemara, no. I can't jump to kodesh. Lav kal v'chaymeru. Kodesh is much more strict than meiser. So I can't even think that the pasuk, when it says mimenu, is coming to exclude kodesh. Ma meiser hakal, if meiser, which is much more, it has much more leniencies. The Torah said, they cannot use it when it's tamei. Kodesh chamur, kodesh, which is much more strict, like kol shekain. Isn't that obvious? They cannot use it when it's tamei. So that's out of the question. When the Torah says mimenu, it cannot be referring to kodesh. Says truma nami. But truma also is more strict than ma'aser sheni. It only a kohen could eat it. Let me also not learn out from mimenu because I have to learn a kal v'chomer from ma'aser sheni. No. I can't ignore the pasuk. Hoksiv mimenu. I have no choice. I have to learn something. So logic tells me not kodesh, not truma. The pasuk tells me something. Which choice will I choose? Truma. Why truma? Because truma has less chumras than kachim. Why? So let's see. We'll try to make a match now and see which halacha, which kachim has more stringencies to it. Says the Gemara, Umara Isa, who told you? Why did you choose that mimenu is coming to exclude truma and not kodesh? Says the Gemara, Mistabra, it's logical. Kodesh loy mima'atina. I cannot say that kodesh should be less than meiser, or if I have a choice between kodesh and truma, I would never choose kodesh. Shekein simon pankakas. There are 6 things where kachim, karbonis, are more strict than truma, and therefore, if I have a choice between the two, I choose kachim. What are these 6 things? Pigul, only kachim, it's possible to become pigul, that when the kohen shechs it or throws the blood, the 4 avodas, if he thinks that he's going to eat it or sprinkle the blood or bring the ivarim tomorrow, then, or whatever, after the designated time, then the carbon is possible, and you have kares for it. Noiser, if it was left over time, then also it's possible and you have kares for it. Carbon is the fact that it's called korban, that I'm sacrificing before Hashem, so it's obviously much more holy than truma, which although it's called holy, it's not called a korban. By kachim, even the part that you eat, it's called a korban. It's called that it's sacrificed before the Eibush, and then the Eibush gives it to you, whatever the description is. But it's called korban, called sacrifice before Hashem. Meila, there's a possibility to when if you use kachim, you have to bring a korban for using the kachim by accident. Not in the cases that you would burn it. Kachim that you have to burn, if you use that, you do not have to pay the extra 5th and then the quarter, which turns into 5th, and bring a korban. But it's the category which has that concept of bringing a korban me'ilah, which truma doesn't have. The kares, if someone is tamei and he eats kachim, he's chayiv kares, and if he ate truma, then he's only chayiv misa b'dei shemayim, which is less severe, either according to some opinions, it's an older age, but the main thing is that it doesn't destroy his children could still survive, and he has ilam haba. However, kares cuts him off in ilam haba, and his ariri, it affects his children as well. So, korban is much more severe, much more strict. And also la'inin, someone who is a close relative passed away, and they did not bury him yet, cannot eat kachim. Truma he could eat. So we have 6 things where kachim is more strict than truma. So if I'm pushed to the wall, I have a pasuk which says mimenu, only meiser has something special, which something doesn't have. And I have 2 choices, which are called the holy, truma or kachim. I'll choose truma, because kachim has 6 things where it's more strict than truma. Says, I want to know, you're right, you have 6 things, but you have other things where truma is more strict than kachim. Let us not exclude truma shekein machpaz simon. There are four things where truma is more strict than kosher. Misa, that if a Yisrael ate truma, is chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. 1 second. Why is that more strict than 1 second? 1 second. 1 second.
Shlomim can be eaten by a zar. Korban shlomim can be eaten by a zar.
Right. So truma, no zar could eat, and whenever any zar eats truma, then he's chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. And kachim, sometimes the zar could eat truma, could eat kachim. So you don't have that blanket rule that you always chayiv misa b'dei shamayim. Chomish, whenever you eat, a zar ate truma b'shoigig, he has to pay a chomish. However, if a zar ate the part of a korban which a kohen was meant to eat, he doesn't pay a chomish. If you ate a part which belongs to hektish and a kohen cannot eat, that's where me'ilah applies, and that's where you pay a chomish. But if you eat the part that the kohen was meant to eat, you do not pay a chomish. And by truma you do. Ve'ila pidyon, you can never redeem what's it called? Truma. There are cases where you could redeem kachim if it received the moon. V'asur al-zarim. Oh, so truma a zar could never eat. However, shlomim and toida a zar could eat. I'm trying to think again. What is if a zar eats kachim that are meant for a kohen, is there an oynish for that? Is the zara
misa b'dei shamayim?
Is the misa b'dei shamayim for that also? No, the zara kohen yumas seemingly would be misa b'dei shamayim. So where is this misa b'dei shamayim, which is exclusive for tumas? I think like this Tosfos has a discussion about it. It sounds like those same things where kachim would have karis, truma has misa b'dei shamayim, and we're like unsure which is more strict. According to Gemara Bavli, misa b'dei shamayim dies at 50, and karis dies at 60, and therefore misa b'dei shamayim has something more strict than karis. A person dies younger, so we're not sure which is more strict, truma or kachim. Truma that he dies younger, or karis that he loses his children as well. Or it's also the mambo. So we're not that's the two sides of the coin. Truma has something more strict than kosher. So the Gemara is saying like this again to refocus what we're saying over here. We're trying to find out who said that if truma is tamei and the kohen is burning it, he could use that fire. The answer was we learned it out from Ma'aser Sheni. Ma'aser Sheni says I cannot use it when I was tamei. It and nothing else which is similar. Now there are two things which are similar, karbonis and truma. So we're trying to figure out why we chose truma over kachim. Says the Gemara, kachim has 6 things which are more strict than truma. Says the Gemara, no, but there are 4 things where truma is more strict than kachim. So we're not looking at the numbers now. We're trying to say each one has a stringency over the other, and therefore, I don't know which to choose. Says the Gemara, like what we would think right away, Hanach Nefishim. This is 6 against 4. So 6 wins, and therefore kachim is cancelled out. I will not choose that to allow you to use the flame. Viba is same. If you want, I'll tell you. Kodesh chamur shekein anush kares. In other words, out of the 3, cancel one. Out of the 4, cancel one out. Misa b'dei shamayim is not more strict than kares. Although he passes away younger, but his children still survive, and it doesn't cut him leilam haba, and therefore it isn't the stringency. So you're only left with 3 against 6. So I guess 3 against 6, it's halfway. So then, for sure, Kachim win, and they're more strict. Rav Nachman Omar, Nachman Beitzchak Omar, Omar Kra, Titan loy v'loy lo'iri. It says like this. You have to give truma whether the produce is tummy, whether the produce is tar. But if you have tummy produce, you cannot take truma from that on tar produce. Why not? They're both going to go to the kohen? No. If you have an ability to give him something which he himself could use, don't give him something which he could only use for his lamp. So if you have tar oil and tummy oil, make sure that the truma that you give him is low, something which he himself physically could use, he could consume it. Don't give him something which he'll have to use for his lamp. Now from that the Torah is telling you, you could have given him something which is not for him, but you should give him something which is for him. What can I give him as a present that is considered giving and it's not for him? The only option is if he's using the fire. So we see that there's an option of giving truma for his fire, which is tummy truma, but you shouldn't do that as a truma for things that are edible. So we see that he could use a truma for his fire. Let's see it again. Make sure that the truma that you give him is for him directly. Something which he himself could use. He wouldn't have to use it just as fuel for a flame. What do I see from this? That if it is tameh, he could use it for his fire. But the Torah is telling you, don't give him things which he'll use for his fire in exchange for things that he could eat himself. So we say that he could use it for his fire. So to summarize what we said over here, we're discussing over here who said.
But why didn't it bring that? Why didn't it bring that proof at the beginning? Why do we have to go through this whole kochim truma? Just it's so obvious.
It's much more straightforward. Yeah, it's much more straightforward. Actually, Tosfos has an opposite question. All the pasuk says is, give it to him, make sure he gets it. Yeah, so you could say, no, give it to him, and don't give him something he'll have to discard. Who says that the pasuk is telling you, give it to him, and not for something which he could use, but it's not for him? The lo'iroi, we said. How can we learn from that he could use it for oiroi? No. Maybe it says, titin loy, give it to him, and don't give him something which he'll have to chuck away. And therefore, maybe takitomi truma you cannot use. So Tosfos answers that we learn enough from the word titain. I mean, there could be a titain that it's an atona, an esina, something worthwhile, a shava pruta, but it's not for him. So what other option do you have? It must be lo'iroi. So it's not so straightforward. If it's not so straightforward, you could say that people want to have something a bit more clear. Also, more than that, there we could find it out from the pasuk, but the pasuk is not trying to say that. It sounds like the pasuk already assumes that you know that there's an option to use it for something else. Comes the pasuk and tells you, don't use that option when you have another option. But it sounds like the Torah assumes that you know from elsewhere. From where? So those are the other two options. The other two options could be the source where the Torah had actually told us that we could use it for something else. And then this pasuk comes to tell you, based on that, don't use that as an excuse. Okay, so we're discussing one subject over here. Who says that you could benefit, the kohen could benefit from truma while you're burning it? So we have 3 sources. Rav Nachman said, it says, Nosati lecha, mishmeres truma yisoi. Truma yisoi is plural, 2 types of truma, tamei and tar, and lecha means that you could use it. So that means that you could use tummy truma. Rabbi Yochanan said, by Meiser Sheni it says you cannot use it when it's tummy, and it says mimenu, only him, which means everything, other things which are similar, you could use when it's tummy. Now I have 2 options, kachim and truma. So which will I choose? Truma. Why? Because kachim has 6 chumrus. It can become pickle, it can become noiser. It's called a korban. You could have me'ilah, you're chayiv kares sometimes, and an oinen cannot eat it. Masha'in can truma, which all above do not apply. Says the Gemara, but truma has some things that are strict more than kachim. There's misa b'dei shamayim, There's choymesh when a zar eats it. There's you can never redeem it, and a zar can never eat it, and the kosher have exceptions. Says the Gemara, okay, but it's 6 against 4. Even more than that, it's 6 against 3. Because Misa B'dei Shamayim compared to Karnis is not considered the Chumrah. And it sounds more than that. It's not just that. Karnis outweighs everything. I didn't say it right last time. Karnis is a stringency that you cannot go against. If something could be Chayav Karnis, that's it. Let go. If it's so strict that it could cut off the person totally, you can't compare it to anything else. Or you get Chamer in this, it's Chamer in that. You cannot compare anything to Karnis. That's the pshat in the Gemara. Not what I said before. It's not like it's against 3. And then Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, there's a different pasuk which says that you shouldn't give truma which is not loy, which you'll have to use for his flame. Which from that we understand that he could use it for a flame if necessary, if it's tummy truma. That's that. Say there.